What is up YouTube, and today we're going to be taking a look at my characters that I've built for PvP. So this was a requested video and I decided why not do two in one season. We'll do one mid-season with the mid-season patch update, and then we can do one at the end of the season, right? So basically I did hit Mythic this season as well, pretty much halfway through. Usually I just go to Mythic and stop, so I hit it when it was like top 25. I've dropped to 47 as you can see. And basically the reason is because I just go for the golden lattice. The ranking rewards, these are for the end of the season. I might go for, I don't know, top 100 or something, get some extra anima crystal points and stuff like that. But basically this, the rewards from this aren't the craziest thing ever unless you're pushing for like top 10, I'd say, because you get a different border, but it's a lot of time and effort, and I think the meta is just not really that fun to play, and I'll talk about that when we talk about certain heroes that I have built on my account. But yeah, this is basically how it is. It's I wouldn't say RTA is not fun to play. I think the meta does have problems, but it's still fun to play, and hopefully they make some changes. But besides the point, let's actually look at the characters I've built now and what I actually use in PvP. So I'm gonna show you guys my roster now. I'll just kind of quickly explain the builds and where I pick them, but for the most part, I don't want to say my character builds didn't change, but they somewhat changed. I think they just got all like strict upgrades, and you're gonna see that some characters I actually did put on just completely different gear sets, which will make it interesting. But the biggest addition to my roster compared to last season would be something like Rahu, Liliam for sure, Lily being built differently, Chiaki, DPS Viper and stuff like that, and I guess switching all of my healers and cleansers to effect resist, so that I don't struggle against CC as much as I did last season. But let's go down the list now. So this is my DokiDoki. I think DokiDoki was by far the best character last season for me and for the majority of the people that play the game, because there weren't really a lot of answers to CC at the time, because no one really had a lot of F-Res built. No one really had, Liliam, because she wasn't released yet. So she was extremely good, but CC is kind of not that strong right now, even though like I complain about it, and even though I say it's very oppressive when you go against it. When you actually gear out your characters and you actually get F-Res, effect resistance built, you actually start to realize that even though it's still RNG against CC players, you are at an advantage most of the time. So it's actually worse for the control players. So this is my DokiDoki. I don't pick her as much. I used to pick her first pick a ton last season. This season, I usually end up picking her 4 or 5 when people draft CC. I sometimes ban Protector if I know I'm going against a control player. In that case, they're pretty screwed, honestly. But a very good character, right? You want to build her on 2 F-Res at least, and then 1 defensive module. I don't really like 3 F-Res because this makes it so that in the bruiser mirror, she kind of just blows up. So I have her on 2, but I know some people that run her on 3 and only pick her into control. But, she works well with Fuqiu still, so I like to have her on 1 defensive module. And basically you want to run her on Bloodbath, Bulwark, and then Swift Smite or Swift Raid. There's no real other option. I think people can build her faster on Swift Rush and put her as like a cleave control opener, but this is what I have to counter control. And then of course you have Codex here. Codex is going to make it so that you can S3 twice or S3 into S2 twice, which is very good against some higher damage control teams like cleave and control like combined, which people are pivoting to. And you just want to make her as fast as possible while being on the setup. But yeah, she's won me a lot of games this season as well, definitely against like control. Still like her a lot. I have her max still, and she's a very good unit still, but just not as like oppressive as last season, because there's other options against control now, and control isn't as strong. This is my Messiah, so I'm gonna be honest, the only times I've ever picked this character is when I time out. So you can see like the order like the characters are. When I time out, it's usually DokiDoki or Messiah because they're the first 2. So this is my timeout character. Whenever you see this picked on my side, if you're ever against me, you could just assume that I timed out. He is an extremely broken character though. I'm not gonna lie, he is like, the way that cleave works right now, you kind of need Messiah. People just ban protect him and then pick supports around him, and he kind of just like, destroys your team. Not on my build obviously, but I think people run him on count and just more damage. But amazing character. I think he is honestly like S tier for cleavers, and he's just really frustrating. And with Nymphoneal that just came out, which I do want to build eventually, he is a menace and is very, very powerful. So now we have Lilith. Lilith, I have latticed 415. I don't really use her though. The biggest reason why I don't use her is because I don't have another Jackal Guard. So you want this setup for Lilith, basically Bulwark, Bloodbath, Swiss Smite, and I can't get another one to drop ever. It's been like 3 weeks. So I don't really use her, but if I did, I think I would probably use her more. But you would run her on something like this. You want 2 effect accuracy and 1 HP bonus because her damage scales with HP. And you want to just build her fast, and basically she's a control unit, but because she scales with HP, her damage is actually pretty good. The only thing is I find it a lot harder to use her now in this season. I don't see her nearly as much now as before, and I think it's the reason because, you know, like I said, with DokiDoki, a lot of people are building more effect resistance, and her 2-turn delay on her stun is pretty easily dealable unless you're like picking Kazuyo with her. Because you have so many people that can dispel, and Liliam being strong right now makes it so that she's hard to play. So Kazuyo can do okay versus Liliam because you have attack down. Lilith doesn't really do anything besides stun and get fish for extra turns, and you know push back and do speed down, which is a lot, but it doesn't really counter, not counter, but stop Liliam's damage. So very hard to use Lilith. She's like a 4 or 5 pick. You kind of just pick her when people draft poorly, I'd say. It's not really a pick that you just pick and can play. It's like a punish pick, right? So yeah, that's what she is, but I need Bulwark on her, and I'll probably use her more later, but for now, this is what I have her on, and I didn't really pick her that much, but she was ready in case, you know, they did draft very, very poorly. Next unit we have is Tiamat. So this is my Tiamat build. It's actually pretty bad, I'd say. I think I need to definitely make her faster, and I need to raise her crit rate. So the reason why she's bad is because you can see I have like 0 speed subs rolled into my gear, which is actually insane now that I look at it. But it's all on the left side. Like I have good pieces on the left side, but the right side I have 3 speed from 3 pieces. That's insane. I'm missing literally like 30 speed on her, but basically it's because I didn't really play her that much, to be honest. I think she's like the weakest of the bruisers. You have to really kind of just draft around her. But the thing is with Tiamat is that, you know, you're picking a lot of healers to make her work, and you can get countered very easily by like Lily, and Lily with Holden. Even though Tiamat is blue and Holden's red, Lily with any bruiser just wins like most bruiser matchups. So it's very, very annoying, especially like Lily with Liliam. It's pretty unstoppable. But you know, Tiamat is still a good unit, don't get me wrong. You know, there was some like weird stuff with Amber that went on. I have her on Lighthouse now because I think it's just better overall. But mostly I would pick her into Cleave, and I wouldn't really pick her into Bruiser Mirrors unless I had Lily. And that's because Tiamat's S1 it hits pretty hard, but it's pretty hard to like cycle her, to be honest. I guess it's pretty hard to cycle mine. So I had to pair her with Lily to actually do, you know, actual meaningful damage. And sure, I can tank down with her, but, you know, I don't think Tiamat is like that strong right now because, I mean, she's strong, but I don't think she's as good as the other bruisers because she gets countered by 2 green bruisers and Rahu and Mizuki. And even though Holden should lose to her, Holden can still win, and Holden has way more utility. And Etheria effects really screw over Tiamat because, you know, even though she's doing more damage, she loses all of her healing basically, and that's what procs her ultimate form. So yeah, that's what I think about her. I think she's in a fine state. I don't think she needs a buff, but I think a lot of people think that she's like super broken or super OP. I think she's just a strong character. She's like the weakest of the bruisers right now. So yeah, she's also very weak to control because you're not going to ever build her on Bulwark, which really hurts her, while Holden can be built on Bulwark, same with Mizuki. This is my Rahu. This character is so broken, by the way. I have no idea why they buffed him. So basically, I noticed after I built Rahu, which was like 4 days ago, that my games have been so easy. And it's because you always have a chance to win with his follow-up attacks. And if he follows up right before his turn, and he has like his S1 going with Artisan Shield, He does even more damage. It's like, it's just a crazy unit, right? Artisan is pretty much a must on him because the shield gives him like sustain. This shield is huge, by the way, if you build him on high defense, which mine is on, and it makes you do so much more damage. And even when it's not your turn and you're following up, it makes you do more damage. So basically, you can see my build here. I'm at 3,500 defense. I think that's pretty standard. And then you want to go for as much crit rate and crit damage after. I don't think speed is that important because you kind of just play for follow-up attacks, but you know, Bloodbath, Bramble, Colossal Guard is going to be the best. And yeah, this character is just broken. Like, you basically can... So what ends up happening in draft is people will pick Holden very early because he's like the best, you know, flexible DPS. Not DPS, I guess he is a DPS, but like Bruiser, you know what I'm talking about. And the reason is because he can be played into so many different team comps, right? You can play him into CC with Bulwark. You can play him with CC because he has S3 and S2 to strip and, you know, push back and, you know, stuff like that. He can be played against Cleave. He can be played with Cleave even. So people first pick Holden a lot. And with Rahu, you don't want to pick him into Holden, obviously, because he kind of owns you. But you can pick him into Holden. So if people end up first picking Holden, what I would do is I would ban protect Rahu and just force ban their Holden. And obviously, you know, there's ways to counter it, but Rahu as a unit, when he doesn't fight Holden, he just feels super oppressive. Now, he is very weak to control and he's pretty weak to Messiah, but if I know I'm against a Bruiser player that first picks Holden a lot, I would just ban protect him and then ban their Holden, and then, you know, you can't really pick any other Bruiser into him because he just wins, right? If you could get Lily with him as well, it's very good because, you know, Lily can buff, you know, someone else. So what Lily can do is like, you know, twin trick your Sania or your Lingluo to give you extra healing. And then it's basically like twin tricking Rahu in a sense, which is crazy. So not really much to say. I have him at 5-5-1, and this guy is like insanely OP. So if I get him to 5-5-5, I can't imagine how much damage he can do. But I think he's one of the top tier DPS bruisers right next to Holden. So next we have my Lily. So my Lily's on this weird setup, you might think, but I think everyone's switching to some sort of setup like this. So in the current meta right now, if you're not cleaving, you can't really pick Lily unless you have her on Bloodbath. And I have her on 12-12, you can see. I have her on Lighthouse. I know some people like Gigabyte, but I like Lighthouse because she gets focused a lot and this procs very often. And because she is pretty fast, she will be able to reset the cooldown of Lighthouse, which is 2 turns. And the reason why she's so good is because a lot of the bruisers, their damage and their S1 is pretty overtuned, I'm not gonna lie. So Rahu's S1 is obviously overtuned. Tiamat's S1 does a lot of damage. Holden's S1 does a lot of damage. If you have Liliam, she does a lot of damage with S1 as well, and you could cycle her faster into her Law of Silence, which I'll talk about later. She's very good with DPS Viper, and she's just very good with like literally every single character. The worst character to pair her with is probably Mizuki, but she's still very good with Mizuki, so it's pretty crazy. So basically I have her on this setup so I can pick her into bruiser teams with the bruiser team. And basically what I would do is pick her early. So you would pick her 1-2 most of the time, or you would ban protect her, right? She's a very highly contested unit. You just don't want to first pick her if you are on this setup, because if you first pick her and then you're going against Cleave or CC, she's just a dead unit. She's just useless, right? She does nothing because she's not on Bulwark and she's not like tanky enough base stat wise. But if you can pick her into a Bruiser Mirror, you are already at a huge advantage. So just build her on full tank, you know, nothing crazy, and she's very good because, you know, you just twin trick your Bruiser, or in some situations, there's going to be some situations where you can twin trick your healers to help with if they pivot into control, or you can like push up your Fuqiu so, you know, your Fuqiu doesn't get reset by Holden. So very, very good. Very strong unit. I think she's even better this season than last season. I think last season DokiDoki was like the premier, you know, support. Now it's kind of like Lily again. So there we go. So next up we have my Lingluo. You can see she's pretty slow, but she's on Strive, which is fine. And basically I just pick her into CC. Lingluo isn't like a good healer, beside like contrary to what people think. she's like the worst healer in tank versus tank standard matchups. It's mostly because her healing output is really bursty, and even though bursty healing is good, you can kind of play around her long CDs, and it just makes it so that, you know, she can't really out heal other healers. Sania has like a res and like HP percent bonus. Chiaki has a huge AoE heal like Lingluo does, but Chiaki's is bigger, and she has a lot of damage reduction. It's like super OP actually. And then Fuqiu has, you know, pretty much everything, right? Healing, turn meter push, and a shield, damage mitigation. But Lingluo really only has that immunity, you know, some decent healing, probably the lowest healing out of everyone, and then she has the cleansing, right? So that's why you want to build her on high F-res. I have her on full F-res. You can also get like extra from Insight and this passive here. You could see mine's yellow because for some reason the game doesn't want to give it to me. But basically you want to build her on as much F-res as possible and just pick her into CC. She is one of the best answers to crowd control. It's like her, Liliam, and DokiDoki. But yeah, mostly an answer to crowd control. If I didn't have her built like this, I would just get rolled over pretty much every single game by CC. But she allows me to have a chance, and she gets banned a lot by CC players anyways, but you don't really want to ever pick her into bruiser mirrors on the setup because, yeah, she just doesn't heal a lot. Even if you put her on a lot of HP and more speed, she's like better against bruiser mirrors, but even so, she's not going to be better than Sania and other healers. But, you know, mostly a crowd control counter, very strong for that. But yeah, like I said, the weakest healer in terms of raw healing. So now we have Holden. So Holden is just like a super broken unit. I think he's the best unit right now. And I need to farm better modules for him because I really need to get his speed up. You can see, yeah, I'm missing like, you know, 3 speed here at least, 3 speed here at least. But basically I want to push him to like 265 speed, 270 speed I think is like very good. But basically you can first pick him if he's up. He's just super strong. You want to run him on Bloodbath and Bulwark and then Swift Smite. This is like his best setup. And then you want to run him on Jackal Guard. So, you know, defense percent, you know, I have speed. I like Insight on him. So honestly, I wasn't going for Insight, but it rolled into the max roll, of course. Not for my Lingluo, but for Holden. But this is very good because on top of the Bulwark, it makes it so that it's harder to dispel this, which is very good against like Vipers and stuff like that. But also, like, it makes it so that his S2 is going to have a higher chance to land, especially on like stuff like, you know, Sania, even though they're on F-res usually, and like, you know, Lilies and stuff like that, even Liliams. So very nice. Your S3 also can land more easily. But basically, you want to run him on defense, 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 or defense, defense crit rate. I like defense, defense, defense because there's actually a lot of cleavers now, so, you know, this makes it so that he can actually live and actually get to his take like 2 or 3 turns and then you win. But it's really up to you. My crit rate is low, so it's kind of bad, but it's whatever. I do have to still, you know, change his gear around. But like I said, you can first pick him. He's highly contested. You know, nothing really ever hard counters him right now, which is the problem. You can say like, oh, Tiamat's blue. Nope, like Holden can still win. Like if Tiamat's in ultimate form, she's forced to AoE and hit Holden. If Holden counterattacks and lands defense down, depending on what characters go next, and if, you know, the enemy team has heals up or not, or a way to get it off, you can just kind of kill her there. So yeah, the problem with Holden is that he doesn't have an ultimate form. He is in ultimate form, which is just him the entire time, which is super annoying. And yeah, his S2 is just so broken. Like, if you get your S2 off on any supports, like Kazuyo, Fuqiu, Lily, you know, stuff like that, Sania even, if you get lucky, or just like any DPS even, you kind of just win the game. So it's just a really broken character. But there's a lot of ways to build him, you know. You just want to aim for this matrix setup. Jackal Guard really helps his damage because I'm pretty sure this works on defense down, and it makes your S2 literally like one bang people later, so it's pretty insane. But yeah, this is the setup you definitely want to go for. Now I have Liliam. So my Liliam's on the standard build, Law of Silence on Bloodbath, and basically it's to, you know, make it so that she can't really die to one cleave opener. If you go against like 2 cleaves, like 2 rev openers, like I don't know, Messiah Yelly, or even like Yelly Freya, you're gonna die. So That's why you don't want to pick her into cleave. She's mostly an answer to CC, or you can pick her later in the draft if you have Lily. But you can also just pick her later if you run out of damage dealers, or if you find that there's a good opportunity to HP seal Tiamats and stuff like that, which really shuts her down. But basically, you're playing her to HP seal, and then execute eventually, and then stun everything, and just insta win. And you want to cycle into your Law of Silence very quickly. I find that she pairs very well with Lily and also Fuqiu to kind of help her, survive and sustain herself. And for her Matrix, I know you guys are probably wondering why I'm on Harvest. So some people run Kenai Fury Edge, like 6 Kenai and then Fury Edge to get a ton of stats, right? Because if you think about it, I'm pretty much missing out on 18% crit damage, 38% crit damage, and 12% crit rate, which sounds like a massive deal. But the Harvest passive is just better. And if you can meet the stat requirements to 100% crit rate, this makes you HP seal a lot more on like Tiamats, Sanias, Lingluos and stuff like that. And that's way more valuable than just, doing more damage with your S1s and stuff like that. So yeah, Harvest is just going to be the best option. Also, you're getting value on this pretty much all the time because in the current meta, they're just perma healing to full. So you're going to be able to get value on this. So Harvest is just better. But, solid unit. I think most people that first pick her usually play control. But if I'm going against a control player, I will first pick her against them so that they can't pick her away. And she kind of just, becomes a must ban against control players, right? So very strong unit. Honestly pretty OP, but I think she does have some ways to play around her. And by some ways to play around her, I mean just pick more broken units such as Holden, right? Okay, next we have Fuqiu. So Fuqiu is going to be the best healer for Bruiser Mirrors, mostly because she permanently heals your team every time they get hit. You're getting turn meter pushed, and you're getting a speed buff and a huge barrier at the start, which kind of makes it so that they're forced to use like Holden S3 or stuff like that instead of holding it. And if they fail to dispel, they're pretty screwed. But basically, you want to run her on Bloodbath, Bulwark, Evil Guard. It's pretty much the setup. And I really like Supernova. I know some people like to run Halloween, but Supernova is just so strong on her. It makes her basically when her S3's up with Supernova procced, you literally cannot die and you can't take any damage, which is pretty crazy until it goes off. And she's a really strong character. So I think for Lattice, I have her at 113 and she works, but I know you want to get her to 115. But basically, you want to run her on 2 FRES, 1 HP bonus. I like this because it makes it so that you can't get like reset by Holdens and stuff like that because of the Bulwark. And also, like if you go against any type of CC or cleave because you picked her early and got like punished for it, you have a chance to resist and get your S3 off and win. So FRES very good, stops, the Kazuyo sleeps as well, and just a very powerful unit. I think she is the best healer. You can pick her early, just build her slow on this setup and she's very good, or you can build her a bit faster on Halloween and she's very good as well. So next we have Chiaki. So Chiaki is also a crazy character. I think she is a pick that not a lot of people, I know everyone knows about her now, but not a lot of people know how to play around her, because she has this insane buff that reduces the damage you take. So you can actually use her S3, even though it's a huge heal, to apply the buff to your team early on, and it makes it so that she's very strong. So I actually really like her against like Liliams and stuff like that, because she can reduce the amount of HP seal that she does because of her Origami Guardian at the start of battle. And also she's pretty good against cleave, because if she cuts in, then she gets her S3 off, you just insta win. And yeah, that's pretty much how I use her. Now, against CC, she really struggles. You can build her on some FRES if you want, but I found that doesn't really matter because she has no way to dispel my team, honestly. So I just put her on like this Bruiser setup, this HP setup. Bloodbath, Evil Guard's very good. You can go Strive as your secondary, you can go Swift Rush, doesn't really matter too much. I find that she tends to get focused down a lot, but I have her on Gigabyte because it's very strong. I have Synergy because I don't want to roll it because I have no chips. But basically, this is her setup. You could pick her into Bruiser Mirrors. I don't think she's better than Sania or Fuqiu, but she's like the second best option to those two. And then Lingluo is probably like very slightly lower. So yeah, Chiaki's a very good character. I think she is one of the must-build free-to-play healers that you need to build, because there's not enough healers in this game to not build her. Next we have Sania. So my Sania is going to be on this F-Res Swift Rush Bloodbath setup. She's on Gigabyte as well. I need to get insight on her eventually, but it just won't roll into it, so it's hard to get. But basically, you could pick her early. She's one of the most toxic characters because she reses, heals every turn, dispels, turn meter pushes, and then you put her on Gigabyte so she gets extra turn meter push. Mine's at 270 speed right now with Gigabyte, and her passive, it feels like she's at like 400 speed permanently, which is crazy. But basically I have her on 2 F-Res and HP bonus. I probably will switch this over. Actually, no, I won't. So I did actually have her on 3 F-Res, but I found that a lot of people don't actually play control as much as you think, and HP is just better when you get focused down by Liliams and stuff like that. But I know some people like to run 3 F-Res. I just didn't find success with it. But like I said, you know, Swift Rush Bloodbath is what I have. You can go Bloodbath, Strive, Evil Guard, I think is the best setup. I just don't have any more Gigabyte shells on that setup because game hates me. But basically you pick her early, you can pick her into Bruiser Mirrors. People pick her on 1-2. She's also decent versus Cleave. She is also decent versus CC. The reason why she's good is because if you're not cleaving as your playstyle, she's just good against everything. Like at the very least, she's like always going to be good. And sometimes in some situations, if you're playing, stall games, she is like the GOAT. So very good character. It's really hard to say when to pick her because you could just pick her whenever, honestly, and she's good. So just a very frustrating character to play against. I think most of it has to do with how Gigabyte works in this game. I don't really think her kit is like that broken, but Gigabyte makes it so that she's just super oppressive because she just keeps cycling. So yeah, there we go. So next we have Viper. So Viper is on a DPS setup. This got popularized like 2 weeks ago, and he is crazy. So you just run him on Bloodbath, and then you can run Bramble. I like Keen Eye Fury Edge, but I heard Bramble's just better because he gets focused, which I definitely see. You run him on Golden Lion because you stack this super quickly and just do a crap ton of damage. He got buffed in the last balance adjustment, and just run him like on a full damage setup. And even though he's full damage, you have Bloodbath and his 30% DR passive, which is great. And he's very, very good because when you start ramping up your Golden Lion, your S3 hits like a truck. And you have to keep in mind, he can counterattack too, which is very frustrating. Not when you just hit him, but anyone else. I can't tell you how many times I fought a DPS Viper and I wanted to scream because he keeps countering and like silencing me and just like doing a ton of damage. And the fact that he's an AoE counterattack every 4 is just very annoying. But he's a super strong character. I don't think you could pick him all the time because on this setup, he's actually very weak to Cleave. And he's also pretty weak to CC. But in Bruiser Mirrors, he's definitely good. He's notably good against something like Liliam because he attack downs and speeds down. So Liliam gets, pretty, annoyed by it and very, very crippled. But he also can dispel her attack and speed buff, which is very good. He's also decent against Tiamat and also Holden because he just does a ton of damage. Like, it's not like he's a for sure win against them, but he can do well. The thing is with Viper though, you really want to pair him with something that can help him take turns or pull him to attack. So the best candidate is Lily. If you pair them together, they are so strong. So this is why Lily's so good, because she, I wouldn't say enables a lot of characters, but makes characters like twice as good right now. Just how the meta works with what characters are good, and because their S1s are so good, yeah, that's what she does. But Viper's like one of them. He gets to stack his Golden Lion faster, gets to stack his passive faster. He's also good with something like a Fuqiu because she gives speed buff and she gives a very good shield that also gets affected by his passive, so it breaks slower. Just a lot of good characters that work with him, and he is a very good character, I'd say. I wouldn't say he's like as good as like, Rahu or Holden or Liliam and stuff like that, or even maybe like Tiamat, but he is like very, very good still. So definitely recommend building him. It's very easy to build him. You just kind of just, look for a Golden Lion shell, and then you just look for a Keen Eye Fury Edge on whatever setup, and you can just build him like this. You can also go Bramble as well, which I said, which I'll probably switch him to. So now we'll move on to Mizuki Makoto, but you guys are probably wondering what I'm running. So defense, crit damage, crit rate. I think this is the best setup. You can go for HP bonus as well, it's fine, or attack bonus, but I do like him a little bit more tankier because he does blow up. But here is Mizuki Makoto. So she is a very powerful unit as well. I have her on Swift Rush, Bloodbath, Colossal Guard. I think this is I don't know if it's the best setup, but it's a good setup. Some people run her on Strive, which I don't understand because she doesn't get hit that much. But yeah, I think Artisan is her best shell. You can also run her on like the Holden shell as well. It's probably very, very good. The only thing is, like I said, I only have one. So I have her on Artisan, but Artisan really buffs her damage by a lot when it's up. And I like to pick her into Tiamats, and I also like to ban Protector. So the way I ban Protector actually is, usually what happens is people ban Holden sometimes, honestly, and then they like to first pick Rahu. I actually seen that a couple times. I don't know if it's good, but the way to really punish it for me is, one, you could play CC, but since I don't play CC, I like to ban protect Mizuki, and this kind of locks them from picking Tiamat. You can't really pick Tiamat into her without being at like a disadvantage at the very least. And then you just ban Rahu and you win. That's like one situation, but you're mostly going to pick her into, what's it called? Tiamat, right? Because she heal blocks, she stops her from getting stacks, she's on Amber, she can't heal and stuff like that. But she's just a solid pick overall. If you're running out of like good bruisers to pick, you can just pick her, honestly, and she's fine. She kind of just gets hard shut down by Holden though, so you want to keep that in mind. But she's pretty good against other characters in general. And yeah, just run her on double defense crit rate. It's the same as my Holden build. And then basically, I guess Holden's on what? Triple defense now? Yeah, okay, so I lied about that. I switched them off, but double defense crit rate and Artisan, and she's very good. Yeah, she just does a ton of damage, and also a solid pick into Viper DPS, which people are picking. So yeah, defense buff is also very good. If you pair her with Holden, because you can't, you know, pick Rahu or you don't have him, the defense buff for Holden from Mizuki makes him do so much more damage. So that is my Mizuki. Now let's look at Kazuyo. So this is my Kazuyo. I don't pick her ever, like ever, until like pick 4 or 5. And I only pick her if you like really screwed up draft. It's kind of like the Lilith situation, but she's just a ton better. And it's because she can solo kill teams, which is really stupid because of this shell. Jackal Guard gives you a speed buff, which allows you to lap super fast, also turn meter pushes, and also does a ton of damage. So it doesn't wake up through your sleep either. And this character is super oppressive. Yeah, I like to pre-ban her with Obol every game because it's just very frustrating. I don't think her S1 should be 2 turns sleep. And I do pick her like sometimes, I'd say like 10% of my matches, but it doesn't feel good to play, doesn't feel good to play against, and just feels bad all around. But she punishes teams that can't deal with her sleep at all. So if you go against a team with no Lingluo, no Liliam, no DokiDoki, or just one of them, you can force pick her and then ban the other, and you pretty much just win because she sleeps forever. And I guess you can eventually lose if you know, get 10%ed, but usually I pair her with something to help her cycle very fast, like Lily, so that she can lap, or something like a Sania to boost her health, or even something like Fuqiu to boost her speed and, you know, do stuff like that. So basically what I'm saying is, you know, I pick my bruiser team, pick my healers and stuff like that, and if they really screw up draft and allow me for, and they kind of have an opening to get CC'd, Kazuyo's my pick. She's a very broken unit. I think she really needs to be nerfed on her S1 for PvP because it's just not fun to play against. But yeah, that is pretty much my count right now for the mid-season for Season 1. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next video.